Osc Academy, a platform for the OSC residents and by the OSC residents. A platform which we have bought in, where people can come in and share their knowledge and expertise to enrich our lives. We have a very interesting session lined up by Mr. Nimish Chavan, where he's going to talk about the art of storytelling, the fictional storytelling. Now, without wasting much time, we will dive in and let us understand the nuances of what does it take to write a very captivating, a very engaging, and a very memorable story.
Good evening, everyone. I am Nimish Chavan, and thank you all for joining me today in this wonderful session. Today, I'm going to discuss about writing effective fiction and how you can harness the power of storytelling. Let's begin. Now, I'll introduce myself. I am Nimish Chavan, and 2 years ago, I wrote a book on pre-books as a competition. The deadline was only a month, so it didn't turn out to be what I expected it to be. Well, then I went like, hey, if I can do this, then why not write an entire series? So that's what my aim for the future is. Now, I've done a lot of research on this topic, and I've discovered that as aspiring writers, we all ask the same question. What makes a story truly unforgettable? That's what we are going to discover. Now, over here you can see I've written down 2 thoughts of mine. I'll read them out for you. Reading and writing complement each other just as listening and speaking do. What does this mean? I'll ask you a question. Rewind back to the time when you were little children. You didn't know how to speak. So, can anyone tell me, how did you learn to speak? Yes? Correct. So, to learn to speak, first you have to listen properly, and then you can formulate your speech. Similarly for writing. Here's a confession. I or any other teacher can only teach you about 25%, if I just had to throw out a figure. We can only teach you about 25% of this wonderful art. Well, how do you learn the 75% then? The secret is reading books. Reading books is what helps you become a better writer. Now, when you read books, you absorb the work of other authors, and then when you want to write your own, you cannot just open up Word and start typing. You have to know what to write. This gives you the knowledge. And secondly, the more you write, the clearer your thoughts become, and the easier it is to make your words flow naturally. Now, initially when you start to write, the words don't come out that easily. You have to think a lot. It's very time consuming. So, how do you become so efficient in the process that it comes as naturally as regular speech? Well, you write more and more. There's a saying, practice makes perfect. This is a contextualized version of the same. Now we begin. The core elements of fiction. This is a very broad topic, so I have boiled it down into 4 parts. Number 1, plot, characters, setting, and theme. These are what make up a fantastic story. Let's discover all 4 of them. Now, the plot. What is the plot? It's the skeleton of your story, but it's really very simple. It's just one event after another after another. They are basically the events of your story. Now, a plot, it starts with your introduction to your climax to your resolution. Don't worry, I'll explain all of these terms. And let's move on to the characters next. The characters. Like I said, the plot is the skeleton of your story, but your characters, they are the soul. Now, can anyone list popular characters that you know from your favorite movies or books? Yes? Frozen. Can you name some characters? Yes, so these are basically what your characters are. We'll learn more about this in a moment. Now, the setting. The setting is also very important, and it's really just the when and the where. When does the story take place and when does it take place? Let me give an example. Say you're writing fantasy. Now, your fantasy, it cannot be in the future, it has to be like medieval, like Harry Potter. You cannot just put in technology and all where you have to put in magic. Similarly, in science fiction, it's all about tech, no magic. This is what establishes the tone of your story. We'll learn how it's important. Next comes the theme. The theme is the message that your story explores, what you are trying to convey, basically the moral. It could be anything, for example, good versus evil, love, revenge, etc. We move on. Here I've described the difference between the plot and the characters, two of the most important parts of your story. Now, the plot, it's really just 7 words. We start with the exposition. What is the exposition? It's the introduction of your story where you introduce everything. You basically tell your reader what's going on. You introduce all the main characters, what's happening. Basically, you just introduce everything. Then from the exposition, you move to the climax. The climax is the main part of your story, where everything you have written, it just boils down to this. The climax is where, for example, in Harry Potter versus Lord Voldemort, the main hero versus the main villain, the protagonist versus the antagonist. This is the climax. Now, the journey from the exposition to the climax is a long one. So, how do you transition? First, you build tension and you just keep on increasing your action. How do you build tension? This we'll discover later. Rising action. What does this mean? So, you cannot just introduce your story and then go right into the main part. It would seem very boring. Your readers don't have enough information. So, you basically try to give them what they need to know about this. So, for example, you could add minor villains, make the hero fight those minor villains, then introduce a lot of challenges, make them overcome them, and that's it. Now, the resolution is the conclusion of your story, the aftermath of the climax, of the main events. So, this is where you conclude your story. From the climax to the resolution, all you have to do is release all the tension. You have to introduce a drop in action, and that's really pretty much that. Now, the characters. The characters are very integral. Let me ask you. Let's take a popular work of fiction as an example, the Ramayana. What comes to your mind when I say the word Ramayana? Yes? The ones at the back? Yes. Any more? Yes? Yes? Okay. So, the characters, you just listed the names of the characters. Do you notice something? It's not the plot, it's not the setting, it's not the theme. The characters, how it helps your reader to memorize your story. Now, over here I've shown an illustration of an anchored ship. Let's say the ship is your story, what you're trying to tell the reader. The seafloor is your reader's memory. What keeps it there? The anchor. The characters are the anchor that anchor your story to the reader's memory and keep it there for a long period of time. Your characters are the most important part of your story, and we'll go into great detail about this. So, this was all about the basics. Now let's move on to how you can actually enhance your narrative, make it better. I have described 4 techniques here that you can use. This is where it gets very interesting. Number one, use figurative language. What is figurative language? Figurative language is basically like, instead of just telling everything directly, you convey it in an indirect manner, but it's often more effective. It conveys more profound layers of meaning. Let me show you with an example. Over here, we have a sentence. The forest was quiet. It seems quite boring. But on the other hand, if you modify this, the forest stood silent, as if holding its breath. Let me tell you a fun fact. When we read a book, our brain basically works like a text to video converter. It absorbs all the text, then it tries to convert it into an image which is formed in your mind's eye. You might be familiar with this. Now we can manipulate this fact to add more effect to our narratives. Over here we have the two sentences. Can you just describe your brain's reaction when you read these two sentences? The forest was quiet. Your brain goes like, okay, forest, lots of trees, animals. It was quiet. Okay, registered. Quite boring. But on the other hand, if you say the forest stood silent as if holding its breath, your brain goes like, oh wait, what did he just say? Holding its breath. Heck, what could be so terrifying that it could scare a forest? That is your desired effect. This is how you bring it about. Now, you can try to experiment with the same sentence. The forest was quiet. How can you modify this using figurative language? Using comparisons, imagery, in more indirect speech. Anyone would like to try? Yes? Yes, that was fantastic. Anyone else? No one? Yes? Okay, so anything else? All right, so let's move. Oh, yes. Very good. That was fantastic. Amazing. So this is what it's basic. Now this is basically what it is. Now we move on to the next part, using emotive language. This is where it gets very, very interesting, but you have to tread with caution. Now, emotive language. Without emotions, we humans are just walking statues. Emotions are what makes us humans human. We feel happiness, anger, anxiety, sadness, etc. Emotions are an integral part of us humans. Again, how can we use this to make our narratives better? Let's take another example. She was sad. This portrays an emotion of sadness, of sorrow. How do you modify this? Her shoulders drooped and tears welled up inside her eyes. This makes it a bit more dramatic. This makes it a little more interesting because you have a lot of emotions in here. The reader can actually connect with your characters, how they are feeling. This is the effect you want. But if you do this too much, it could feel very deliberate, like you're trying to do it on purpose. It feels melodramatic. So avoid using this too much. You have to use it sparingly to get the maximum effect. Next, foreshadowing. What is foreshadowing? It's a very useful tool that you can use in your stories. Foreshadowing is when you drop hints about what's going to happen in the future right now, but you don't reveal the whole thing. You do it like a puzzle, like the pieces of a puzzle, you do it gradually. Let me show you how. This also creates a sense of mystery, like for example, you're writing a series of 5 novels. At the end of the first novel, you could add an epilogue. So in the epilogue, you can include the first chapter of the second novel. It tells the reader what's going to happen next. It maintains engagement. so that they'll actually go ahead and buy your second novel because they are interested. What's going to happen next? Now, we also have flashbacks over here. Anyone's familiar with flashbacks? We have a lot of these in the movies. Yes? Not exactly. Yes? Precisely. Anyone else? Would you like to try? Yes. So flashbacks are the reverse of foreshadowing. In foreshadowing, you hint about the future, but in flashbacks, your character goes into the past, whether it's through a dream or if another character forces them into it. But flashbacks, you could use these very effectively to like introduce backstories in your characters. You could tell more about their past. This would make your characters more relatable to the reader. This is how you connect with the reader on an emotional level. Therefore, flashbacks are very important. And next, we have writing believable dialogue. Now, dialogue is basically all about speech, conversations. Without speech, without conversations, well, your story wouldn't seem more like a story. Your characters need to interact with each other, they need to talk with each other. This is what it's all about. It's crucial for making your characters come alive. Good dialogue should reflect a character's unique traits. They should deepen the plot. And we are all familiar with dialogues. Dialogues from movies, that's what helps you remember them. Can anyone list famous dialogues and from the books or movies they are from? From? Oh, brilliant. Anyone else? Yes? This was from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. See, this is how effective good dialogue can be. If you add these dialogues, like these are an elevated form of speech, this helps your readers actually remember your story. They keep it in their minds for long periods of time. We move on. And now, conflict. Conflict. Let's take the example of World War II here. Imagine you are a soldier in World War II. Conflict. So you're on the battlefield, you have guns, you have to kill your enemies, you have to prevent yourself from being killed. That's external conflict. What happens physically, how you struggle, how you fight physically. But there's also one more equally important type of conflict, which is internal conflict. Now, when your characters are fighting in a climax, mostly, they also go through feelings, emotions internally. Describing them is also very important. Your readers deserve to know how the characters are from the inside as well as how they are from the outside. Now, what is internal conflict? We'll discuss that first. It occurs within the character's mind as they struggle against their emotions like fear, guilt, etc. And this type of conflict basically reveals stuff about your characters, their weaknesses, the strengths, their vulnerabilities. This helps you add depth to your story. External conflict, however, is basically what drives your story forward. It deepens your plot, it advances your plot. Now, external conflict is usually this person versus that person. Like, for example, your characters are battling other people, society, maybe even themselves, technology, nature. There's a whole range of new things you can explore here. Now, world building. World building is exactly what it sounds like. World and building. You develop your own environment. It can be however you want to be. So you go, you expand your creativity, be creative, and create your own environment for the story. So in Harry Potter, for example, J.K. Rowling created this world where there was a lot of magic involved, Hogwarts, and the Ministry of Magic. This is what it is, building your world. This makes your story very interesting. Now, world building is a very complex process for most people. Most people struggle with this. But don't worry, I have boiled it down to 7 questions that you can ask yourself while you are planning your world. Number 1, we focus on the setting in the first 3 questions. Number 1 is, when is the story taking place? In what timeline? Is it in the past? If it's in the past, it's most likely going to be like medieval fantasy, etc. If it's in the future, then it's going to be science fiction, like space and all. You could get very creative. You could build your own timelines, or it could be contemporary, which is right now. It could happen in the present. Where is the story taking place? Again, the when and the where, very important. The where is basically, so for example, if you could like, the story could take place in your country, on other planets, in space, in other countries. Go creative. This is your world. Then what is the genre of your story? Genre. Can you explain what a genre is? Yes, the type. Now, a list of genre includes crime, thriller, horror, fantasy, science fiction, etc. You could get creative and invent your own. Now, the genre is very complex. Let's take an example of horror. Everyone likes horror movies, but let's say that you're writing a script for a horror movie and you feel it's very scary. How can you neutralize this effect? Because you don't want your viewers to leave like how traumatizing this was. You want to leave them with a positive outlook. You want them to feel positive vibes. So, how do you bring about? You mix and match. You combine different genres. Like, for example, nowadays there are a lot of horror comedies. You combine horror with comedy to neutralize the effect. This also makes it more interesting, and feel free to modify. Then, the culture and the society. What do you do here? The culture and society is basically the traditions like we have right now. Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, create your own. What are the traditions and social norms of the characters in the story? Again, your story is all about making your characters reliable. That's how you get your point to the reader. Because the characters are the soul of the story. They are your main focus. You have to focus on how the characters behave with each other, what environment they are in, how they influence the environment, how the environment influences them. This is what you describe here. The next part. What consistent rules and boundaries are to be set? Very, very important. Let's say your characters can use magic, you're writing fantasy, but you don't want it to be infinite possibilities. The reader can just go on imagining. You don't want this. For example, they could blow up planets, galaxies. Your spells could do that, right? This is why you should set consistent rules and boundaries to restrict. Now, if you restrict, your readers have a very narrow perspective. It gives you precision, accuracy. Then you can also add history and conflict to your story. For example, the backgrounds and backstories. Like I said, flashbacks. This is what they are for. To introduce the backstories of the characters. This tells you more about the characters, and remember this one thing. Focus on your characters and your story will automatically be very, very interesting. Then, what are the primary causes of conflict? Now, conflict, let's go back to the example of World War II. Why are the countries fighting each other? What are their motives? What do the villains want? What do the heroes want? This is basically what it's all about. These 7 questions, if you are able to answer them, world building will be a very easy process for you. Then we talk about pacing. Pacing and maintaining tension. This is where tension comes in. This is where most of us writers struggle. How do you maintain the pace? Let's talk about it. For example, there are 2 types of scenes, fast-paced moments and slow-paced moments. You have to identify these first of all. In fast-paced moments, you basically have fighting, lots of action. This is basically in the main conflict, in the climax. This is where it happens. It cannot be all slow. You have to make it interesting. You have to cram in more of content into this. That's how it will be more interesting. And then we have slower parts, like reflective parts. For example, the character is done fighting a battle. They want to think about it. They want some time for themselves. They want to think. They want to talk with other characters to ease their mental tension. Now, slower reflective parts. They also slow down the momentum. You want your readers to relax. You don't want them to go all, okay, this. They'll get tired. This is where it comes in real handy. You can add fillers, like dialogues between characters. Keep it slow and steady over here. Next, we have cliffhangers and revelations. Again, cliffhangers. Can anyone explain this? What do you mean by the word cliff and hanger? Anyone? Okay, I'll explain. Imagine you're hanging from a cliff. The ground seems to disappear beneath your feet. This is exactly what you do to your readers. Now, your readers are expecting answers, but you don't give it to them. This builds tension, this builds engagement. For example, you're writing a book, it's a trilogy, and you don't want to reveal everything in the first book. Just when the readers feel that they are about to discover, okay, so this is basically what it's all about. You don't want your narrative to be predictable. You want your plot to be all convoluted, twists and turns. This is what it is all about. First, you introduce unanswered questions. For example, the character. They don't know much about their past, and they're on a quest to discover themselves. You don't give the answers straight away. You build curiosity within the reader. Then you add events with strong elements of surprise. Surprise is everything. Then, how do you actually reveal all of this information? You do this in the exposition. You don't want any unanswered questions there. So you reveal it when the reader is least expecting it. This is when you bombard it to them. Because, this is what makes it more interesting. Or you can do it in a gradual manner. Slowly and steadily, the character discovers everything. This is how you do it. Next, heightening conflict. Conflict, as we discovered, is the heart of the story. It's very important. So, how do you take it to its maximum point? First, you need to push your characters. You don't want everything to be very easy for them. You throw difficult challenges at them, and, you make them tax the limits. This is how they will evolve through the story. Show the characters' triumphs in a way that feels earned. In the end of the story, you want to make sure your characters get everything, but imagine how it would feel. If they didn't deserve it, how would the reader feel? Oh no, this was so boring. But if they are forced to make difficult choices, difficult decisions, then at the end the reader would feel, okay, this was so interesting. The plot. the skeleton of the story. How do you make it? I've distilled it down to 4 pointers to make it slightly easier. First and foremost, the exposition. You introduce everything, the characters, the setting, what's going on. Set the stage for the conflict to arrive. Then you create conflicts and add unforeseen surprises. This, you do it simultaneously. In conflicts, you design both internal and external conflicts to throw at your characters. And in surprises, you just learned about them. Include cliffhangers, then you bombard your readers with the answers in a very unexpected manner. This is how you build tension, engagement, and lastly, the resolution, the ending of the story, the conclusion, the aftermath. How do you get to it? You completely resolve the central conflict. You transition from the climax to the ending. Keep no surprises. You just tell them everything straight away. Over here, I have included an example of how J.K. Rowling planned the plot for Harry Potter and the Order of Phoenix, an international bestseller. As you can see, she has written down the names of the chapters, the setting, where is it happening, when is it happening, then the plot itself, small descriptions of how it's being done, then all the main characters, what they are up to, how are they going about their business. It would be very helpful if you do it in a tabulated manner. And lastly, when you are done with your story, don't forget to revise it, to refine it, to make it better. 3 steps. First and foremost, you read it aloud, always, so that if there are any awkward phrasing, inconsistencies, you can easily spot them and you can fix them. Then you edit your scenes and polish grammar. For example, you feel like, okay, this scene is not working out very well. So you can edit it. Then polish your grammar. Now, grammar is not to be underestimated. For example, say you're a reader and you're reading a book, the grammar is in a mess. What impression would it form? You don't want your reader to think that, oh no, he has just done this. He's not really excited about this. What is this? So, grammar forms a good impression on your reader. You can trim out all the repetitive scenes. So, for example, you feel like this is getting boring, all the slow-paced events, you can trim out some of them if you want. Then you should pay special attention to your punctuations, the clarity. You read it yourself. You ask yourself, do I actually understand this? Accordingly, you edit everything. And last but not the least, always seek feedback from others. I'll give my own example. While conducting this session, Ashwini auntie gave me a lot of feedback, and it actually helped me. I worked upon a lot of things, and a big thank you to her for that. Similarly, you give your family members, your friends to read your story, you ask them to read it, and then you seek their feedback. Always, never forget this. You have written the story, you know everything. They don't. So if they read them for the first time, you'll get to see from their perspective what is wrong. They'll tell you from their perspective, and similarly, you can fix it for your readers. And here we conclude everything. First of all, you master the core elements, then you use figurative language, emotive language, flashbacks, foreshadowing. You add your dialogues to enhance it, make it better. Then the world building, you first answer those 7 questions, and this would help you to build your setting. Pay attention to your theme, what you're trying to tell the reader, and you don't want your plot to be all straightforward. Remember to add more and more layers, keep it convoluted, complex, and most importantly, your main goal is building and releasing tension. You have to know where to introduce surprises, where to reveal them. This is what makes all the difference. Thank you for joining me today. I hope that you leave I hope that I leave you with new insights to fuel your very own storytelling journey. Happy writing to you all. So, any questions? Okay. Okay, so basically, 2 years ago, there was this Books competition, and I thought I'd enter. It would be a new first time for me. So I wrote a book on Books, and they only gave us 1 month to write. So I was like, oh no, the quality isn't what I wanted to be. And this whole thing got me excited, the book writing process. So I researched more and more into it. I thought like that I'd finally write my own book because it's how I wanted to be, no deadlines. It would be very nice if I did that. So for 2 years, I did some research, and this is how I got all the insights. And now here I am. I'm going to start writing my own novel series, and I hope to publish it in the future.
Actually, I wanted to say that you had written your book in books, and I think our competition deadline must have been the same because my school also had a books competition and the deadline was 1 month. So I actually published my book through
Oh, brilliant.
books, and actually it's on Amazon right now. Last time I checked, it some 100 people had bought it or something. So currently, I am now writing a 7 series novel
Oh,
on the same books. Yes.
but if you ask me, I'd personally recommend to not write it on
Yes, because
books.
there's a
Yes.
500 word limit on each page and it makes it really difficult to write. So what I'm actually doing is like by hand I'm writing all my novels first. Then I thought I would do it by books, but then for the first 2 novels I did it by books. But then I first wrote it on paper. Then because it's easier to do that way, and then typed it on my laptop, and then through Word like I just printed out the typed version of it. So
No.
I'm on my fifth novel right now.
Okay, so I'll tell you something. If you want to write your own book, don't do it on books
Yes.
because it's basically for beginners. If
Yes.
you want to write a full-fledged series, then you're doing it the correct way. You do it on Word first. You make your manuscript, like you
Like the
can.
first
Yes.
draft, and then you finally finalize it. Like you said, reading it aloud, then to look for any awkward phases, polish the grammar, and then finally the final draft comes. I get feedback. I always give my books to my English teacher at school, and she gives it to everybody else
So
to.
how do you publish it?
Publisher, actually, I'm just writing it, but for publishing, I think I'll just give it through Books or I guess some other publisher. I'm actually confused, but when I complete all my books, I guess I'll see which publisher wants to publish
Okay.
my
Are
book.
you aware about Amazon's new
Yes. Uh,
Kindle Direct Publishing?
no, but I'll search into
It's
that.
called Amazon KDP. It's called Kindle Direct Publishing. It's a platform where you can like self-publish. If you don't, if you're not able to contact any reputed publishers, you can do it on your own through Amazon KDP. Like it can be in the form of an ebook, paperback, hard copies. You have to select, and it will be there on Amazon.
So I'll
You
try
can do
that.
it that way.
Yes. I'm actually not finished. I'm on my fifth series right now. I have 2 more books to go. After that, I'll publish it through the Kindle, what you said.
Yes.
Thank you. I have not given the names of the chapter yet because I've still yet to decide like, according to the books. The theme is like I have used 2 methods in this: emotional writing and foreshadowing. It's horror comedy.
Oh.
Neve Desai, and I'm from Children's Academy.
Congratulate Nimish for showing such a great show over here. I don't know how many of you know writing books as a career, to what extent uh, it is, basically. I don't think one or two 100% people over here, they are looking for fame first rather than wealth. I had a teacher, he used to tell me, I'm giving the same few words and we'll add one query what Nimish had, how to write the book, that also. I am also author for international books, Cengage, I had offers with McGraw-Hill, but I am into mathematics kind of, not fiction and not fiction. Fiction and non-fiction is not my category. Number one, when I'm saying you want to get a fame, once you write a book, each and every character, author, he is getting a fame not for a day, 2 years, it's for era. Your names has been written. Tulsi Das ji aaj bhi Ramayan likha. He is not with us. Characters, हम ये बोलते हैं कि अमर कौन है? What's the definition of अमर? मैं अमर होना चाहता हूँ. रावण भी अमर है, but his character was not अमर, kind of positive नहीं था, लेकिन हम रावण को अमर बोलते हैं. तो ये डेफिनेशन हमें मालूम है. यदि मैं उसको डिफाइन करता हूँ जो मुझे किसी टीचर ने मुझे बताया था, मैं वही नरेट कर रहा हूँ. आई डोंट हैव एनी वर्ड्स विद मी व्हाट आई हैव. ऐसे कैरेक्टर्स किसी बुक्स में आ जाएं जो बुक्स रिलीजियस बन जाए पूरी सोसाइटी के लिए, तो उस बुक्स में आए हुए जितने कैरेक्टर्स होंगे वो सब अमर बन जाएंगे. थिंक ऑफ ईच एंड एवरी रिलीजियस बुक, each and every characters, each and every religion, they are amar. For science, if we say physics, Newton, gone. You can't write physics without Newton. You can't write physics without Joule. Joule was a scientist. So when you are writing a book, take it as very serious, because there's a day when I won't be in this life, in this era, but what I had written will be there somewhere here or there. And if it could be something very important content in it, then undoubtedly no one can delete you from this world till it's existing. So take writing books as good, as sincere as you can. So before writing books, and I shall say, everyone should think of, nahi soch rahe hain, there's another art. Before sleeping, write 2 or 3 lines, what you have done in your day. You'll come to know how to write. You'll come to know the grammars, whatsoever the things what Nimish might be saying, very few. She said that I didn't understood. You automatically will come to know what are my mistakes in writing. Number 2. Number 3. The very first, when I entered, he mentioned that one should, before writing the book, it's very important to read the books. Unless and until you know, okay, what are the books, what are the content in the book, and what famous authors they have done before writing the book, that also we should know. Like for example, I am saying Bharat Ek Khoj was written by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. It's one of the very famous book. But very few people know that before writing that book, he read the books from Khalil Gibran. I don't know how many of you know about Khalil Gibran. How many have heard of Khalil Gibran? Is there anyone? 1, 2, no one? 1. So Khalil Gibran is a kind of author. If you feel like whatsoever the Nimish has added the content, okay, even for him also and for the another guy, okay, who has started taking the career as writing these story books, I'll suggest, I'll recommend. Although I'm trying find to that at least I can read the books from those ones, okay, and still I'm not able to explore because I come to know those things when I was professionally too hectic. Right now, you are not professionally too hectic right now. You have time to read the books. You have time to think over. You have time to articulate whatsoever in future you want to. This is your part work. So one thing, reading books, स्टार्ट रीडिंग, एक बुक रीड करना है खलील जिब्रान का. इट्स अ काइंड ऑफ, हमने मुंशी प्रेमचंद का नाम सुना है ना. हाँ, ही इज अ मुंशी प्रेमचंद ऑफ वर्ल्ड. मुंशी प्रेमचंद इज ऑलमोस्ट इन इंडिया इज मोर फेमस काइंड ऑफ. ठीक है ना. तो दुनिया का मुंशी प्रेमचंद कौन है? खलील जिब्रान है. Thank you, Nimish.
Yes.
I congratulate you and wish
Thank
you a
you.
very good. And I really appreciate your content, whatsoever you have delivered to the kids. And I shall feel that these students basically, they are more honored than you. At least they come to know how to write the books and what to think before writing the books.
Yes, as Uncle very correctly said that writing a book is no small thing. It's a very important job. So if you write a book, you publish it, and you can go tell people, like, I've written a book. It gives you instant respect. That's one of the perks. And it's really not that hard if you know everything. Like, for example, the techniques I've described here, I did my own research. I read a lot of books, Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, everything. I read them over and over until I got the hang of it, until I did it myself again and again. That's how you constantly improve. This is one of the great perks. It's very interesting as well. So, if you develop a habit of reading, if you develop a habit of just listening to stories, even if you watch movies, pay attention to the stories they are trying to tell you. And then you absorb them, you slowly and steadily, you build up your pace, you take in more and more content. Like, even if you read one page every day, and then you try to build upon it, slowly, you try to read 2, 3, maybe even 50 pages a day. I myself read a lot. I'm an avid reader. So I know how important it is. It really helps. Trust me.
My daughter is 8 years old. So what I feel is we reading books to them when they are young, and adding that exclamation, adding that surprises what he said while we are reading, that has I thought that has helped getting her into reading books more. Now it is not me who is reading for her. Now she is reading Geronimo Stilton. It's a very silly book. It's a mouse character, but yeah, but it's so funny. Like, me being at this age also, it is very interesting for me. Like, the mouse is having an headquarter, and he is having a dragon, what to say? Like, he has a mission to complete, which is full of dragons and all that. It's amazing. Like, at this age, I feel you. When I read it to her, I read it with exclamations and happiness and sadness. And then when we have already read some stories, somewhere or the other, when things are happening in actual life with us, we quickly relate. So I don't miss a point where I can relate that thing to her. And that is when it is staying with her forever. And that is helping her read more books.
So basically, we have to make it more interesting for the kids, make them develop some interest in it right from the initial years of their life, and try to correlate it so that they keep maintaining the interest, right?
Yes, you always start small. Read what you like, even if it's like comic books, mangas, whatever. You just read whatever you really it is, or if it's not very serious, it's still okay. Slowly and steadily, you keep moving on to like more advanced novels. Start with like simple books that are about 50 pages or something. You finish them, you try to finish one book a month, and then you slowly start improving on it. You start to increase your capacity. That's how you can like instill a habit of reading into your daily life. It really helps. And also for writing, if you write more and more, it will help you become a better author. You get experience beforehand, and if you actually ask others to read it, you seek feedback from them. If they tell you that it's fantastic, then go with it. Let's say you want to write science fiction like space, spaceships, lots of technology, space fights and all, then you can read those books of the genre. Then you can also see Star Wars and stuff. Yes? for science fiction. That's usually what happens there.
Look at one book once a month or something like that. So, for example, now if I am reading fantasy books, so then if I switch to motivational books, it will not be that easy for me to adapt. Personal experience, I was reading Ego is the Enemy book. I read 5 pages, I slept. And same for fantasy book, I stood awake till 3 and I read completed.
So you like fantasy, so don't like read books you don't like. If you like fantasy, then you can read more fantasy. You can even explore writing fantasy yourself. It will be very much fun.
But motivation also you need to, as they are writing that for some reason, so it's like for your development.
But ego book is too early for you.
Not only that, it starts today.
So you can start with like basic motivation.
I tried it today also, there was something like it, but that also started reading and I slept.
Read what interests you. Start with what you feel interested.
Yes, begin about interesting.
When I can't sleep, I try to read that book.
Yes.
Lessons, both of that. So Panchtantra books from Panchtantra is very good. Yeah,
The whole book is what
My calligraphy
but then when I was reading about the Victorian era, I wasn't able to read even some lines and I got bored.
Exactly. So if you like science fiction, then don't focus on anything else. If you want author, then it will help if you even read more books on science fiction, not even books. If you just see movies, movies also help. It's just a story that you are trying to absorb. The main story. Any form of media is fine.
Yeah, thanks.
My experience with my daughter, hello. With my experience with my daughter is I tried, giving some books, which is Gyan book, tried. Then I realized ki at this age, when they're young, giving them all these motivational book, Ryan Holidays, and this is too much for their mind. So moral stories, like he rightly said, Panchatantra, there are many more books which, tie in the morals within the story. They weave the, morals. Such books is good for kids to, instill the values if you want to instill as well.
Yes, yes. So he has these Nourish Your Heart and all those kind of stories. So young kids, like 7, 8 year old, those books are really very. They give a lot of values to them. Another important thing of reading is it's not only just for writing books, but I think it develops their creativity, imagination, and it teaches them patience. Patience sitting in one place. That is very important because kids are very active, hyperactive nowadays. Concentration, focus, everything increases. Correct.
How and it worked in my daughter's case when she was very young, barely I think a year, 1 year or 12 months. So and that was during the COVID times. So what I would do is I would buy some 15, 20 books and I would just keep it in front of her because that would give me some more time to work inside. And they would just keep looking at she would just keep looking at the books. Today she's a voracious reader because I gave her no option but to read, no TV, no phone. हफ्ते में जब भी once in a while we can see. So when kids have no option, this is my observation, when kids have no choice of phone का भी choice है and story का भी choice है, they'll obviously go for the phone. I observed that in her. कि choice दिया है phone, animated cartoon versus cartoon versus a book. Naturally the inclination is to pick up the cartoon. But if there is no choice, okay, pick book लेके पढ़ो, फिर पढ़ते, it gets into the habit of reading.
Yes.
This is what
I'll share my own experience.
So I did give screen time to my son for 5 years. And in fact I started reading to him when he was 3 months old. I started with Goodnight Moon and The Very Hungry Caterpillar. Both are like, the best sellers. Yes. And I kept,
But sometimes I am against this one.
Why?
See, we need to keep aware with the latest thing what is happening
Yes, so
in the
balance.
world also.
Yes.
See, the future is going to happen somewhere.
I think after 5 years is what they anyways pick up. It's an imagination world that you build for them, which actually helps them. So when I gave him the screen time after 5 years,
Can you think when your child will be somewhere a director in Disney World then?
but after 5 years,
Balance is the key. Balance is the key.
You can be.
so now he's 9, I would give him that option, but I'm very happy with that. So what helped is, in fact, he picked up reading, and when he got screen time after the age of 5 years, he would watch the Peppa Pig episode during COVID times. He would take a book and he would try writing the episode in his own words. So that actually
what I suggest to the parents, let the students live in the present world also.
But I think we should restrict screen time at least till 3-4 years.
Don't force them to go into our era. कि भाई उस समय हमारे पास option ही नहीं।
He has a point here because without naming, see, we were just discussing this with somebody yesterday. That for example, I know somebody who's a lot into reading, but that person doesn't want to meet people as much as he should be. So that's also not good. Like reading, just read ही करना है, but life को experience नहीं करना है. So no. So here the message here is that what he's trying to bring in here is balance is the key. Phone ka animation, and that also kind of adds in another dimension. Yes, reading.
Can anyone realize any specific job which is highly paid and that too related to writing? Not writing books also, just writing. Highly paid job currently. Any movie writer? Any other one?
You're referring to
Day-to-day basis.
Animation.
Any other one? Any other one? Imagine 32 pages of Daily Times of India publishes. 32 pages. Editor knows each and every word what is written in the newspaper, and he's paid highly paid job. So all the newspaper, you might be going through news channels, okay? Whatsoever written in the bottom, imagine how many people are reading that content. आज तक पे कुछ भी आया, CNBC में कुछ भी आया, नीचे कुछ लिखा हुआ, स्क्रिप्ट लिखा हुआ है. Imagine when you're writing that 4 lines, na? Or countless people, they are reading that particular line. The person who is writing that line, na, he is paid very high. So don't think that English or writing things doesn't have any value. It has very value. The thing is that you need to explore. Whereas that is कई बार पेरेंट्स को नहीं मालूम होता कि भाई इंग्लिश इतनी वैल्यू की नहीं है. कई बार ऐसा होता है भाई साइंस पढ़ो, इंग्लिश पढ़ो, भाई मैथ्स पढ़ो, बस चलो मैथ्स ही मैथ्स पढ़ो. इंडिया में तो खैर ज्यादा होता है कि सब मैथ्स पढ़ना है, ठीक है ना, साइंस पढ़ना ही नहीं, इंग्लिश पे हम फोकस ही हमारा कम होता है. सो डोंट थिंक लाइक दैट. निमेश ने जो भी आज कंटेंट दिया है,
Brilliant content. Yes, so clearly, I was really impressed. Yes, learned a lot. Yes, not just the kids.
even me.
Beautifully explained. I loved it. Structured, yes. Your thinking is so.
Usually we underestimate theory a lot. It seems very boring, but if we are really passionate, theory doesn't seem like theory. It's more like we are doing it for fun, for entertainment.
I'm writing 2 books myself. One is about self-help and one is about fiction. And your session has really made me rethink a lot of stuff in it.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Even I'm inspired to write a book now.
Yes, it is possible.
We have 2 people coming to our place daily. One is the newspaper guy in the morning, and then there is an Amazon guy in the afternoon bringing 1 or 2 new books every single day. Because the pace at which he reads his book is amazing, amazing. So I am myself surprised. I get 200-250 page book, and in the afternoon when I'm in the office, I get that, the book has been delivered. Late night when I come home, he's almost at the end of the book. So would you like to explain everyone how to actually increase your speed of reading, or how do you read fast? Would you like to explain to all the children? I think that will help them.
So I'll share an anecdote. Before COVID, I was not that much of a passionate reader. Like everyone here rightly said, it helps if you have no other option. In COVID, I used to get bored. Even while watching TV, I used to get bored. Then I looked at my bookshelves and I went like, oh, here's something new I can try. So I picked up reading. I read very light comics and all, with lots of pictures and illustrations so that it will seem less boring. And gradually I developed an interest for everything. And then I shifted to text. This is where all the magic happens. So when you shift from all those cartoons and illustrations to only text. But as you go on reading more and more, your speed automatically increases. if you set a reading time, for example, in the night, you read for 1 hour. It helps if you set targets. For example, 25 pages, 30 pages. And slowly, slowly, every week you increase one page, and it happens automatically. You don't even have to try consciously. That's how our brains are programmed to think.
The same happens with her. So now what I have started doing is same is with her that she finishes the book very fast. And what next to get is a question mark. So I go to that bookseller who sells a book on bail. I get those books so that I get it in bulk and keep it because it finishes so fast that I don't know. इतना छोटा अगर book है, it's done. Like 2 days it's done. So you need to, keep content ready for them. And as you said, if they have a big option, like if there's a platter of books, they want to choose what book, which day, you don't know what mood she's in, and she'll pick it.
One point, Nimish has mentioned that after writing a book, read aloud.
Yeah.
When he said, I recollect once I was in the Times of India office, okay, after writing, the editor wrote the content, okay, and after that, someone was into the room, someone was reading the content. I asked the editor, what the thing is going on. Well, everything, whatsoever has been written, someone is reading aloud and someone is listening to it.
So that is
That's a process basically, okay, to refine your content. Mean writing, and after writing, if someone is listening, whether he is
enjoying,
not exactly enjoying, he is understanding the same content what is written.
Same thing is done when for medical books when they give chapters. So as different doctors will contribute different chapters for a book in the medical field. So there also we do the same thing.
Okay.
Because if I have written a chapter for a book, and then what we do is we have the peer reviews over there also. So there will be some two seniors or somebody who is as equivalent qualified to the person who's written the chapter, and there would be some juniors or the say we are written it for the PG students. So the PG students would be there and would be reading it aloud to them to see how much they have understood.
Yes.
And then you take the inputs and that's how you revise it.
That was a great input he has given, and very few people or very few places you will find कि books को लिखने के बाद में खुद को read करना. Generally we don't exercise that thing. कि मैंने
And yes, he has a doubt. Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. Yes.
I actually wanted to ask you that how to get over writer's block because I'm stuck on the last chapter of my fifth book and I don't know because
About what? Writers? Oh. So you are running out of content. You can't think of it.
After I finished the last chapter, I didn't have any inspiration. I didn't know what to do. Like
It's very common among writers. So usually what you can do is you can take a break from writing for a few months. Yes, for a few months. And then you consume media. You read more books that are relevant to your topic. You can see movies that are similar, and from that you can derive inspiration. It really helps. If you have sources that give you a lot of inspiration, you have to accumulate those sources. You have to refer to them. Like I myself, for example, how I usually prefer to overcome the block is I watch Marvel movies like Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, all of that. First of all, it's interesting, for me at least. So I consume it better, I absorb it better, and then I just sit and think, okay, this was like this, and I think about the parts I liked and how I can use them in my story, how I can incorporate them in my own story. So take a break, and then reflection is also very important. If you maintain a diary where you jot down everything you learned, what you want to do, your goals, and the sources, what you picked up from them, you write them in a diary by hand with a pen and paper. It works very well that way. And then at the end of the day, when right before sleeping, you just revise everything, read your diary, and then you decide accordingly. And when you think you're ready to get over the block, you think you have enough content, that's when you can start writing. And also you can use a bit of AI. It's completely okay. Just you don't copy paste. You use it in your own words because it's a tool for you to be used. So go ahead, use it. It's nothing wrong.
Remarkable. Remarkable. Okay. That's a especially a daily kind of content होता है. ठीक है ना? You can always chalk down whatever is into your mind. You can remove that one. You can connect to your devices. So for authors, Remarkable is one of the very good products. If I post it on the group, you can share to them. Even Nimish will enjoy that particular.
Yes.
A very few days before only I bought it for one of my students.
I think I've heard about it, but it's gone out of my memory now.
Remarkable is a very good product, especially for the authors. आपको डेली जो ऑफिस जॉब भी करते हैं, कुछ भी करते हैं डेली, each and everyone should have that particular product. 70,000 का आसपास इंडिया में नहीं मिलता है. Product like
Kindle or something.
Kindle नहीं उसे लिखने का जिसमें नोट करके टैब एंड ओके, बट वो एप्पल के टैब से या किसी भी उससे इट्स अ वेरी हाई एंड काइंड ऑफ दैट इटसेल्फ कॉस्ट समवेयर अराउंड 70,000. ठीक है ना? The product is not yet available in India. Okay, if you have any contacts in US or Australia or somewhere outside, okay, you can call them and keep it for long, infinite long you'll work it. मतलब हम डेली बेसिस वाले जो काम करते हैं, नीड टू डू थिंग्स, ये वो बुक्स लिखना, ठीक है ना, स्क्रैच ऑफ कर देना, ठीक है ना, आप उसको कंटेंट हमेशा क्लियर रख सकते हैं. मैंने बुक लिख रहा हूँ, 3 महीने छोड़ दिया, फिर वापस आ गया उसमें, तो मैं तो कंटिन्यू कर सकता हूँ. दैट्स अ वेरी अल्टीमेट.
Yes, nowadays technology is evolving and it's good if you take advantage of it. You can go explore different tools. Even if they are free, you can use it, like, for example, Grammarly. People think it's like pay to win, but usually it really helps. Even the free version, it helps you refine your grammar. If you write, then Grammarly suddenly prompts you, oh wait, this is wrong. So it gets fixed inside your head. So yes, you learn from it, most importantly.
I don't write, but I sometimes go and scratch and do animations, and they actually help me in imagining things
So you sketch?
I don't sketch, I go
Like
and
codes.
scratch.
Okay, okay. That's a very unique way of doing it. Like, but doesn't it take a bit of time?
Yeah, it takes some time and then it happens.
Oh, then
It automatically happens that I get some.
Send this, what do you say, this print screen of this app, Scratch app. Yeah? We'd love to explore.
You can download it from
It's called Scratch, just Scratch.
Scratch.
Scratch 3. Scratch 3.
There's no level of animation and all that.
I have recorded some.
Few schools are also
Yes, that's the reason I
using
asked.
this
I
app.
heard it's just,
Yeah,
I learned it from my school.
yeah.
school you have done?
I have recorded something.
Even Pillai is
What's your
using
name?
it recently. ICT.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're using it in their ICT lectures.
Okay.
So they animate
Assignments and
few-
everything.
Yeah, they do it. So, and if you are getting a laptop, Papa ka laptop use karenge na, so हाँ, yes, I want to do it.
actually, when you write these stories and all, it's not just for books. Even if you are like writing scripts for movies, you're designing games, and you need a storyline, you can do it this way. It works for everything, not just books.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so shall we?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Nimish, for your